Welcome to our last Tempo Storm video for the Year of the Mammoth. The Year of the Raven is upon us, and with its arrival, cards from the Whispers of the Old Gods, One Night in Karazhan, Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, and 3 cards from the Classic set are rotating out of Standard. There are some cards in these sets that sit right on the edge of playability that makes deciding which newly rotated cards to dust difficult. In this video, we'll help you answer the question, what to dust for the Year of the Raven? First, we want to acknowledge the fluid nature of Hearthstone's meta. New strategies are bound to shake up our understanding of what cards are viable. For instance, Raza the Chained was a low-tier legendary when first released in the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. It wasn't until the Knights of the Frozen Throne that the value of the card skyrocketed as a tier 1 staple in the infamous Highlander Priest archetype. In Wild, the rare and rarely used Spawn of Shadows represented even greater lethal damage when played with Raza. No one would have expected the Mean Streets legendary to be so powerful in both formats that it would be nerfed by Blizzard over a year later. Speaking of power, Uther of the Ebon Blade was thought to be the strongest Death Knight before the Frozen Throne's release. Now it only finds fringe and tournament play in Exodia Paladin, which won't be a standard archetype as of the set rotation. Some cards rotating out of Standard will be too powerful to consider disenchanting unless you're a Standard only player. For instance, the Old Gods, Y'Shaarj, Cthulhu, Yogg-Saron, and N'Zoth, represent massive turn 10 plays, while cards like Kazakus and Barnes can swing the game in your favor as soon as you have 4 mana. Some legendaries, however, are obvious sources of dust, such as Prince Malchezaar, who pollutes your deck, or Genzo the Shark, who in Wild will be a worse Jeeves. That being said, a similar video 2 years ago would have claimed Dr. Balanced, Dr. Boom, was way too valuable to dust. As the game has evolved, the once turn 7 staple legendary of any mid-range or control deck has found no play at any tier of deck in our Wild meta snapshot. So if we could have overestimated the long-term value of Dr. Boom, how do we decide what cards to dust the day before the set rotation? The kind of cards we're looking at are ones that don't serve a unique purpose, like Don Honcho. There are many hand buff decks where common cards like Grime Street Outfitter outclass the Grimy Goons mob boss. Cards like Sergeant Sally, on the other hand, represent a unique effect of untapped potential, a cheap minion that deals AoE damage only to your opponent's minions. This makes its future value difficult to determine, as Sergeant Sally saw no play in any tier during its time in Standard. This trend may continue into Wild, but with the sudden success of cards like Spawn of Shadows in more recent metas, we can theorize about the style of deck she may be good in, such as a minion-only buff Death Rattle themed deck. With the power of other mainstay archetypes in Wild, it may be a long time before such an idea is competitively viable. This is a card with a unique effect, but we believe it would be more valuable as dust for the budget-minded player going into the Year of the Raven. But unlike Don Honcho, we're able to think about its potential. Wickerflame Burn Bristle is a strictly better card than Sergeant Sally from our current understanding of the game. Burn Bristle represents the kind of card that we would suggest holding onto. A mid-range Paladin deck may appear that makes full use of a 3-mana Divine Shield Lifesteal Taunt minion. On the other hand, cards like Call to Arms make Wickerflame Burn Bristle look drastically weaker. Any Paladin deck in Standard or Wild can't afford to not play Call to Arms. So we're faced with the dilemma, what Paladin deck would ever make Wickerflame Burn Bristle good in a game where Call to Arms exists? Though this is a question we'll have to return to in later sets, Burn Bristle does fit cleanly in 2 elements of Paladin's class identity, life gain and Divine Shields. So it's likely that powerful synergies with the 3-mana legendary may emerge in future Wild metas. Lastly, Finja the Flying Star comboed with the Tinker's Sharpsword oil during Journey to Ungoro to make Oil Rogue one of the best mid-range packages in the Wild format. Now only Paladins utilizing Anything Can Happen use Finja as a tech option against aggro. It's worth noting that in recent metas, Finja has been one of the few standard legendaries to find more competitive play in Wild. The applications of this legendary are more limited than others in this list because it relies on the success of Murlocs in minion-dependent combo burst decks. We'd consider this to be a card that sits on the threshold of keeping and dusting. As a Paladin player or Murloc enthusiast in Wild, it would be worth keeping. Otherwise, we don't anticipate the card growing in value anytime soon. You may have noticed that most of these legendaries being mentioned are from the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan set. Since then, we've experienced the Journey to Ungoro, the Knights of the Frozen Throne, and Kobolds and Catacombs. We look at how much this game has changed since then, and see how the values of these legendaries have either changed or remained consistent. We're asking ourselves what legendaries we should dust for the Year of the Raven while witnessing the change in value some legendaries go through from 1 to 3 expansions. The best way to learn what legendaries to keep is to go through the most recent Wild meta snapshot and see what standard legendaries rotating into Wild have remained prevalent in the tier lists. Cards like Aya Blackpaw, Fandral Staghelm, and Barnes represent powerful standard staples that also change the wild metagame. But cards like Medivh the Guardian, which has been experimented with in Control Warlock and contributed to Control Mage success, has seen little to no play in the most recent Reno Mage lists. It's unlikely the card will compete against the even greater value generators of the archetype such as Echo of Medivh, or fill valuable roles like Sludge Belcher. We hope you enjoyed our last Year of the Mammoth video. From the Tempo Storm Hearthstone YouTube team, we look forward to seeing you in the Year of the Raven, both in Standard and in Wild. Be sure to like and subscribe for more Tempo Storm news and Hearthstone content. Happy pack opening!